Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. Good morning. For the careful listener out there, or someone that's been listening to several of these podcasts over, I hope, the past few months, you'll note that I didn't start this podcast in the same way. Normally I begin with an excerpt from somewhere in the middle of the podcast as a sort of a teaser. This is one of those topics where I'm not sure we need a teaser. It's just one of those things that some people are going to want to listen to and some people are not going to want to listen to. It's a topic for in Washington, I guess you'd call it a wonk, a W-O-N-K, a policy wonk. This is a sort of someone that really likes to get into the nitty-gritty of how committees and things work at the annual conference level. I am the chairperson of the Commission on Equitable Salaries, have been now for a couple of years, and when I came into that role, I realized that this is a committee that meets one time a year, and we have some very specific things that we have to do in that one meeting. Usually we're out within an hour, hour and a half at the most. But the things that we have to do, we need to be reminded of each year, because this commission sets some things such as the minimum salary for the various categories of clergy within the annual conference. It recommends increases in those salaries. It sets an amount that the bishop and the cabinet are able to use to assist churches to come up to the minimum level. And so we're very specific in the kinds of things that we do. And yet we have to remind ourselves each time we get together why it is that we are there. And so I thought with this podcast I would sort of bring you into the meeting. We recorded the session, and at the beginning of it, I tried to do some explanatory notes, so to speak, to help us all get on the same page. And for those wonks out there that like to follow this kind of stuff, this is going to be the podcast for you. So I invite you to listen as we sort of join in mid-conversation. I'm getting ready to explain sort of the reason of one of the main reasons we exist as a committee. So listen carefully. I will stop it at one point because we begin to talk about some specific situations that I don't necessarily think needs to be brought up, but technically we could, because the very things we're talking about are listed in the annual conference journal. I just decided not to get into those specifics with the podcast in terms of churches and pastors, although one church is mentioned in the podcast. But again, it's a matter of public record, so you could go back to the journal and figure it out for yourself. But we're joining in sort of mid-conversation here, and I invite you to listen for those that are interested and see what you can learn about this committee of our annual conference that probably very few people know very little about. If you look at 2017, on that very last page, you'll see the column for 2017. You'll notice significant increase between what we asked for in 16 and what we asked for in 17. And for those that are new on the group, let me explain why that went up so much. Part of the process that we have here is a process that's based on calendar year, but also annual conference year. And some of the persons that may start the year 2017 on one of these lists may move in June and no longer be on the list. So there's oftentimes mid-year recalculations based upon how the pastors have been assigned. And so it's not like we can start 2016 at one level and finish it at that level, because there's always the possibility that there will be a change mid-year. And so we do our best. And what was happening in previous years is that we would be requesting, I'll just make up a number, we'd be requesting $150,000, and we might actually then be spending $175,000 or $190,000. So in other words, we were woefully under requesting what was what we actually needed. We weren't asking for enough. And last year we decided that we would give to CFA a number that at the time reflected what actual spending tended to be, rather than some number that we just arbitrarily increased by 2 or 3 or 4 or 5%. And so we explained that to them, that it was a significant increase, but that it represented the ability of the bishop and the cabinet to put people in places and supplement their salary because they felt that's where those persons needed to be. And it was a matter of ministry and mission for our annual conference, and CFA accepted our increase. And so that's sort of where we stand today. That's why we have a $242,000 amount in 2017 versus $195 in 2016. Did I explain that correctly, Carol?
That was beautifully done.
Okay, Carol says I remembered everything correctly.
Great.
So the question then for 2018 becomes what, Carol? Or what are we going to recommend?
That's right. That's right. And just one additional piece, you'll see that within our budget each time, there's salary supplements. That those funds are used to make sure minimum salary levels are met for full-time pastors at any of the particular status levels. Mission aid funds are those funds that are designated for places where basically we say we want to make sure there's a church presence there, whether the congregation can fully support that or not. We're trying to make sure that there is full service leadership in that place. With the salary supplements, there's an anticipation and hope that the local church can grow into assuming those costs for themselves. With mission aid, that expectation is not present. Cooperative parish is a supplement that we give to the persons who coordinate our cooperative parishes, and that has been a $600 a month, $600 a year supplement that we've given, just a small stipend to those who have served in that way. One of the things that we recommended last year was increasing that to $950. We haven't done that yet to this point, but I think that is something that we could do in 2017 based on our spending history for 16 and the increase in the budget for 17.
Do we determine that number?
We do, and that was our recommendation. I think I'm remembering $950. It's in the minutes from last year, I think. So, but we were saying that we felt like that was valuable work, and we thought to increase it would make sense. So that's something we can affirm or discuss again today if we want to. I tell you about those three pieces because what we submit to CFA, we delineate as best we can how those might be allocated and spent during the year, but CFA is okay for us to spend among those categories as needed. Okay, so we do our best guess about how it will be parceled out, but what they really are trying to ask us to do is our best to stay within the total amount that's allocated. So there is some freedom that we have to draw on those funds as needed.
How many pastors are currently cooperative parish leaders, or what?
We just have 3 right now.
Okay. So we're only talking an extra $150 over what the budget says.
Right.
Okay.
It shows, oh, I'm sorry, that's a total, that's
Right.
a total down there, 1,800.
Right.
Can I ask a question about salary supplement? So if someone's at Lookout Mountain on January 1st, there's a $7,000 salary supplement last year. Okay, that's not my question. So then if he leaves, that salary supplement is not, if you will, it doesn't stay within the church?
It may. It depends on the need. And part of what becomes the responsibility of the superintendent is to work with the church to help them adequately determine what salary level they can support. And so sometimes it stays for the individual church or the charge to continue at that level, or it may be that there's a realignment of churches, congregations, so that you have a sharing of pastoral cost in a different way, and so that may reduce the amount. Or you may have a church say, no, we really can't, for example, cover the cost for an elder, but we can for a local pastor. And so they reduce what they feel like they can do, and that reduces it. So that's where if there's a change in the appointment, things can change mid-year.
You know, as you know, I'm new. I was just thinking coming in. I was thinking these salary supplements were maybe taking them to the minimum salary.
They are.
Oh.
They are, yes. That's
So-
what the salary
so-
supplements are to do, is to get to the minimum salary level.
So,
Well, now, okay, unless it's mission aid would be different.
Mission aid gets them to minimum salary as well.
Okay, it's at this point that I sort of stopped the tape. I broke it off because we were going to get into some details about some specific churches and so forth. And after a few minutes of discussing that, I sort of pick back up on the other side now with a little bit more explanation. One of the things that is vitally important for you to understand is that this commission, this committee, you know, I can't keep straight in my mind whether I'm a commission or a committee, but one of the two, we provide a sum of money to the cabinet, and we trust them as the leaders of our annual conference to use these funds in a way that ministry is provided. That's vitally important, and we have that trust. We believe that the bishop and the cabinet can make the right decisions because they know where pastors need to be sent. They know churches that are struggling. They know what the puzzle pieces look like. We give them a sum, and we say to them, okay, go and do what you need to do to make sure that our annual conference has the best possible combination of leadership and churches and things out there, even if it means we have to supplement and support that salary to make it happen. And so that's what we do on this committee. And so listen as we talk a little bit more about those kinds of things.
Just to help you understand how it works, ideally, by our guidelines, as I say, those who are receiving salary supplement are working to assume those costs over a 4-year period. But there are some of these appointments where that is not going to be true, because we are trying to make sure that all of our pastors who need full-time appointments have full-time appointments. And so sometimes some of these places are places that have said we can't fully afford full-time, but because we need enough full-time appointments, the cabinet may say we need to supplement that one to get it to minimum so that they can have the leadership they need and so that the pastor gets the salary that they need. So just for a little bit of transparency, that is not, that's certainly not true of all of them, but
Right.
that would be true of some.
So in one sense, we are enabling the cabinet to make these kind of decisions for our annual conference.
That's right.
We're saying, here are the funds that are available to you. We're going to trust you all to put the right pastors with the right churches, and if you need to supplement the salary or prop it up somehow or another, this is how much we're going to give you to do it.
That's right. And that they are working very hard with the local church and with the other churches in the area to figure out how best to make sure that area is served. So it may be to help supplement a salary of a particular church or charge, or it may be to do realignments. It may be to really help a church determine how best to use their resources. So sometimes there are churches who've been doing everything they can to pay an elder and left very little to do anything else. And so a superintendent may be working with them to say, let's look at having you have your pastoral needs met in a different way. So there are all sorts of conversations that go on to determine that and to discern what's best, but the funding supplements are part of those conversations. They give some flexibility about looking how best to meet the needs of the church, how best to support our pastors as they lead as well.
Well, for all those that wanted to know, now you know. That's the beginning part of that committee as we met a few months back. And, it's important that we meet and discuss these kinds of things. It's important that we give the bishop and the cabinet the support that they need, since they're on the front lines of knowing what's happening when our annual conference. And so I encourage you to ponder some of the things that maybe you heard, or if you have questions about how this committee works, give me a call. I'll be more than glad to answer. I'll be more than glad to talk with you and share with you what this committee decides. Again, we just meet once a year, but we make some pretty significant decisions in that hour and a half that we meet, because we are equipping our annual conference to be in ministry and mission, and we're empowering the bishop and the cabinet to make that happen. So if you have questions, give me a call. If not, you can see me at annual conference. I think my report will be very short and sweet. Make sure you look in the conference journal. No, take that back, not the journal. Conference book of reports. You can see ahead of time what the report is from our commission. And feel free to give me a call if you have any further questions. God bless and have a great day. And I hope to see you at annual conference. This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.